It was the 1920s in Oklahoma. His name was John Griffith, and he dreamt of travel. He was a young man in his early 20s. He had just married, they had an infant son, and he dreamt of faraway places with strange-sounding names. He read about them and studied about them. Then came 1929. In the great crash of the American economy, and in the howling winds, Oklahoma turned into a desolate and hopeless state. With that crash went all John Griffith's dreams. He packed his car with few belongings and with his wife and little son Greg headed east. They made their way to Missouri to the edge of the Mississippi River, and there he found a job tending one of the great railroad bridges that spans the mighty Mississippi. It was his responsibility day by day to sit in the control house and open the massive bridge with its huge gears and let the barges and the ships go by, and then close it again for the trains to roar across the river. He used to sit there and contemplate where the ships were going and what wonderful places they would see. It was in 1937 that, for the first time, he brought his now 8-year-old son Greg to work with him. His son was wide-eyed as he watched his father press the lever and saw the huge bridge rise and come down again at his father's will. Surely his father was the greatest man in the world. He controlled this magnificent bridge. When lunchtime came, he raised the bridge to allow boats that were scheduled to come by to pass. Then he went with his son over to the catwalk to an observation deck that extended 50 feet out over the river, and they could see the boats as they passed by. They opened their lunch boxes, and while they ate, he told his son stories about these wonderful places. Time passed. He was in the midst of telling Greg about the time the river overflowed with tragic results when, right in the middle of that story, he was suddenly started out of his reverie by the shrieking whistle of a train. He looked at his watch quickly and saw that it was 1:07 p.m. The Memphis Express was due in just a couple of minutes. He didn't panic. He told his son to stay where he was. He leaped to his feet, quickly jumped onto the catwalk, ran back, climbed the steel ladder onto the control house, and looked up the river to see that no ships were coming downriver. According to custom, he looked under the bridge to see that there was nothing there. Then there came to his eyes a sight that made his heart leap into his throat. As he looked down into the massive room, this gearbox, as it is called, where there was tons of gears that moved this gigantic bridge, there between the teeth of the two main cogs of that gearbox was his son Greg. He had tried to follow his father back and fallen off the catwalk. He was conscious, but his leg was trapped between the teeth of the gears. If he lowered the bridge, he would most certainly kill his son. What could he do? Immediately he formed a plan. He would take a rope coiled up nearby, climb down the ladder, run up the catwalk, tie off the rope, go down and free his son, bring him back up, climb the ladder, throw down the lever, and lower the bridge before the train arrived. No sooner had he thought that, he knew he didn't have enough time for that. What would he do? His mind was panicked. His blood was frozen. What could he do? There was 400 people on that train, which was roaring toward the raised bridge. Soon it would come out of the trees at a tremendous speed. But this was his son. This was his only child. His mother waited at home. He was his father, and this was his boy. And he knew what he had to do. He buried his head in his left arm and threw the master switch. Just as the bridge settled into place, the Memphis Express, with 400 passengers, roared across the bridge. John Griffith lifted up his tear-stained face and looked into the windows of the passing train. There was a businessman reading the afternoon newspaper, and a uniformed conductor looking at his large vest pocket watch. There were ladies sipping hot coffee in the dining room car, and a little child pushing a long spoon into a dish of ice cream. But no one looked at him. No one looked at the control. No one looked down into the gear room with its massive gears and the mangled remains of his hopes and dreams. He pounded on the glass and said, "What is the matter with you people? Don't you care? Don't you know I sacrificed my son for you? What is wrong with you?" No one answered. No one heeded. No one looked. No one cared. The train roared out of sight across the river. How could people be so cruel? How can they be so not-caring? I pondered this for months. Then I heard the voice one night that brought me comfort.
I'm okay, Daddy. It's beautiful here. I'm playing in the flowers, Daddy. The grass is green. I love green. Here comes DJ, Daddy. I gotta go. We're going to play hide and seek. I love you, Daddy. Always love you with all my heart.
In atonement for our sins and those of the whole world, for the sake of his sorrowful passion, have mercy on us.
You know, we seem to go through our lives on a daily basis not caring what another is going through, much less even care that they exist. 2,000 years ago, a man laid down his life, not so you can have a big house, a nice car, a fancy job, but that we may experience to see the amazing grace of God, and so you can have a personal relationship with the Creator of the universe. John 13:34, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. Something that sounds so simple and be so easy to do, yet it seems to be man's biggest problem to do.
Have mercy on us and on the whole world, for the sake of his sorrowful